Imagine your neighborhood has one main road. Every few minutes, someone writes down how many cars are on it. At the end of the month, they throw away the worst traffic notes, the top 5%, and set your bill based on the busiest normal moment left. That's basically how a huge chunk of the internet gets priced. It's called 95th percentile billing, and it's quietly everywhere. In data centers, between internet carriers, and inside the contracts that decide whose traffic goes where. Instead of charging for every single gigabyte, a lot of networks charge for capacity. They take a month of tiny measurements, usually every few minutes, sort them from smallest to largest, delete the noisiest sliver at the top, and the next highest point is your billable bandwidth. Not your average, not your absolute peak, your peak, minus the craziest 5%. On paper, that sounds generous. Spikes happen. A backup runs late. A game update drops. Toss the weird outliers, and nobody gets punished for a few hectic minutes. But if you stare at that rule for more than 10 seconds, you can start to see how it reprograms behavior. If what you pay hinges on your highest normal moment, your number one job becomes keep that moment low. Not your daily average, your almost peak, which means smoothing, shaping, and sometimes strategically slowing things down. Here's how that plays out. Say a streaming service has new episodes landing on Friday night. If millions of people press play at once, 5-minute traffic samples can stack up dangerously near the edge of their commit, the contracted capacity they promised to pay for. Cross that edge too often, and the 95th percentile number floats upward, which floats the bill. The fix isn't always more capacity, it's choreography. Pre-position chunks of the show on local servers during the day. Open more peering paths directly to big last-mile ISPs, so traffic doesn't pile into a single paid link. And where the contract allows, nudge delivery, so that the highest few samples are rare enough to get thrown away. If you run a data center or a small content platform, you see this even more directly. A graph on your dashboard has a little horizontal line labeled P95. When the spiky top of your traffic touches that line, alarms go off. Not because users are unhappy, but because accountants will be. So you add rate limiters that shave the sharpest peaks. You move your nightly backups to the graveyard shift. You batch non-urgent tasks into 10 smaller bumps instead of one massive surge. Nothing looks different to users, but the line stays just under the threshold, and the bill does too. That's the financial side. There's also a routing side, and this is where the internet's handshake economy shows up. Two networks can either pay a third party for transit, essentially rent a highway, or they can peer directly, build a shortcut between them for traffic they exchange. 95th percentile billing pushes both sides to keep their shared link wide but smooth. If one side blasts a few huge bursts, those minutes might get thrown away at the end of the month. No harm done. But if the bursts become the new normal, the P95 rises, and someone calls to renegotiate the deal, or quietly detours traffic onto a path that costs them less under their contract. This is why internet slowdowns rarely look like a single dramatic failure. They feel like soft pressure. A route changes. A video drops from ultra to high. The site still loads, it just feels more viscous. Somewhere, an engineer nudged traffic away from an expensive path that was flirting with its 95th percentile line and onto a cheaper one with headroom. You didn't see the meeting. You just felt the physics of a line item. The rule also creates an odd incentive. Short bursts are free until they aren't. Because the worst samples get tossed, you can get away with the occasional spike. Many contracts even advertise this as a feature, burstable billing. But the moment bursts become a pattern, say a game server spikes for 20 minutes instead of 5, that pattern starts living inside the bill. So smart operators get spiky on purpose, but only for moments, and only if their other moments are quiet enough that those spikes will be statistically invisible by month's end. Now zoom out. An entire city's traffic is a collage of these incentives. Big cloud providers seed caches inside ISPs because a local handoff smooths the backbone. Carriers add on-ramps at internet exchanges in the exact buildings where P95 lines kept getting tapped. Even content release calendars quietly follow the pricing logic. A worldwide midnight drop is romantic, but if it creates synchronized peaks across regions, that romance shows up on an invoice. There's a fairness story hiding in here too. 95th percentile billing was designed to be kinder than charge every byte. It gives room for humans being human, but it can also advantage the players with the best traffic choreography. If you have engineers who can split load across 10 links, your P95 stays dignified. If you're a scrappy startup blasting through one uplink, the same number of viewers can push your P95 into please don't be this expensive territory. The system doesn't care who you are. It cares how smooth you look. And then there's the weird psychological part. People talk about the internet like it's a cloud of magic. In reality, you can walk into buildings where it literally turns a corner, from your provider to someone else's, in a rack labeled with names you'd recognize. On each of those handoffs, someone chose a contract, a commit, and a threshold. Most of the time, all those choices align and everything feels fast. On a few evenings, they don't. The math that was meant to be merciful becomes a gentle break. So what do you do with this as a regular person? The honest answer, not much in day-to-day life. But there are a few levers. If your home internet plan offers off-peak data bonuses, take them seriously. You're piggybacking on the same smoothing logic. Schedule cloud backups for the middle of the night. If your work involves large uploads, try a split. Half now, half later, so you look less spiky to the path you're using. And if you ever rent servers in a co-location facility, ask one question up front. Do you bill on 95th percentile? And what's the sample interval? If the answer is yes, and the interval is short, set a rate limiter a hair under your commit. That single setting can be the difference between a calm bill and an exciting one. There's a quiet elegance to the whole thing. Instead of inspecting every packet, the system uses a tiny rule to steer billions of dollars of behavior. It trusts that if it punishes sustained congestion and forgives brief chaos, the network will naturally evolve towards smoother patterns. And mostly, it does. The internet's miracle isn't that it never gets crowded. It's that, almost all the time, thousands of companies with different incentives use the same little percentile trick to take turns without talking to each other. Next time a show buffers for a few seconds at 9 p.m., resist the urge to think the internet is broken. It's probably working exactly as designed. Somewhere, a graph crept up to a line. Somewhere else, a path changed hands. 5 minutes later, a fresh sample slid into the stack. And at the end of the month, a quiet number, the 95th percentile, decided how much that dance cost. You weren't meant to see it, but once you do, you'll start spotting the choreography everywhere.